Over the past month or so, I have been testing and benching Alder Lake while focusing on lowering the CPU voltage and CPU wattage from the wall outlet. I have been keeping everyone updated with my Alder Lake progress. I am enjoying Intel's Z690 platform so far and learning a lot about Intel's 12th generation CPU. I would like to let you all know that I would love to invite you to my brand new Discord server. The server will be a place for enthusiasts to discuss and share topics about the computer industry. The topics won't simply be about the latest and greatest, but can also span several generations from all IT companies. So feel free to join and spread the word. I would love to speak with like-minded enthusiasts like you. I would leave a link to the Discord server below my video. Now let's get back to the Alder Lake overclock information. Overclocking isn't as straightforward as I was hoping it would be, but the last platform overclock was the first generation x58. I would also like to add that overclocking isn't simply pushing higher frequencies and crazy voltages, because there are different ways to gain performance without using those traditional methods. I managed to undervote Alder Lake while increasing performance across the entire platform with sensible overclocks. In my previous reviews, I took a deep dive into the microarchitecture while lifting various bottlenecks. The same will happen in this video as I try to tackle different areas of the processor. If you follow Intel specifications, Alder Lake will begin to throttle at 241 watts to keep the temperature and power usage in check. This can be disabled in the motherboard's UEFI or BIOS, and from that point you can push Alder Lake CPU package wattage well past 340 watts if you choose to. Even then, if your CPU cooling solution cannot handle the additional heat, Alder Lake will lower the core frequencies once the CPU package temperature gets near 100°C. The CPU package temperature is different than the traditional CPU temperature that we have seen over the years, and 100°C or 100 Celsius is the safest temperature set by Intel. So you have to worry about three main things: the CPU package wattage, the CPU package temperature, and various voltages on the processor. However, there are other temps and areas on the processor that you have to worry about as well, such as the ring, the system agent, power limits, and so on. Let's take a look at my specifications. I found my limit and focused on maximizing my performance. I was able to overclock the P cores to 5.1 GHz and the E cores to 4.1 GHz based on my voltage and temps. I continued to run my DDR5 RAM at 5600 MHz, with the main timings being 40, 39, 39, 72, but I tweaked many of the extended timings. I will be taking a deep dive into the Alder Lake microarchitecture latencies as well to show my continued progress. DRAM is a very important factor in determining and increasing performance for me personally. While trying to find a balance, I like to start with the DRAM first, then tackle other areas of the processor to overclock. I will be comparing my stock results to my last results in the last column, which is highlighted in red. Starting with the DRAM bandwidth, I have increased my bandwidth from 75.7 gigabytes a second with DDR5-4800 MHz to 89.5 gigabytes with DDR5, which is an increase of 18.22%. Moving down to the DRAM latency using small data sets, we see the latency decrease from 66.43 nanoseconds to 53.56 nanoseconds. That is a 21% difference in latency. Now looking at the larger data set in DRAM, we see a very nice decrease from the stock settings, from 75.40 nanoseconds down to only 63.56 nanoseconds on average. From the stock 4800 MHz results to my current 5600 MHz results, that is an extremely nice decrease of 11.84 nanoseconds. That is a 19% difference in latency. I have combined the average of all the P cores and E cores in their respective columns instead of listing each core individually this time around. The performance core shows a decrease of 13% when compared to the stock settings. The efficient core shows a decrease of 12%. The efficient cores have always shown great low latency to DRAM, and this could lead to some great performance results in future microarchitectures from Intel. Now that we have seen how much performance I have gained with latency over the past few weeks, let's see how well my overclocks perform in various synthetic benchmarks. Cinebench R23 shows 29,641. That is a 1,907 score increase over the stock settings. Cinebench includes references that you can use, and I have included the top results, which happen to be AMD's Threadripper 2990WX. That is a 32-core 64-thread CPU. My Core i9-12900K is only a 16-core 24-thread CPU. The AMD Threadripper has double the cores and 40 more threads over the i9-12900K. But if you overclock the P cores to 5.1 and the E cores to 4.1, with decent DRAM, you could possibly come within 1.4% of the Threadripper 2990WX based on my results. The average price of the Ryzen Threadripper 2990WX is $1,878.50. Amazon directly sells the i9-12900K for only $618. CPU-Z includes a stock AMD Ryzen 5950X 16-core 32-thread as a reference. My stock i9-12900K with stock DDR5-4800Mhz DRAM has quicker single-thread performance of 816, while AMD's Ryzen 5950X shows 648. In multi-threaded performance, the stock i9-12900K comes within 5% of the Ryzen 5950X. Slightly overclocking the P cores and E cores with DDR5-5600Mhz shows the i9-12900K take a commanding 30% lead over the reference stock AMD Ryzen 5950X in single thread. With only 24 threads, the Core i9-12900K manages to beat the 32-thread AMD Ryzen 5950X in multi-threading benchmarks. The i9-12900K beats the 5950X with a lead of 369 points. I use 7-zip for a lot of different workloads, and it shows some very nice increases with my overclocks. The compression test shows a 22% increase over the stock settings. The decompression results show a 14% increase over the stock settings. The total rating shows an 18% increase. I was able to decrease the stock results of 26 seconds down to only 23 seconds with my overclocks. That is a reduction of 3.256 seconds, which comes out to an impressive 12% decrease. In this test, the lowest time is better. So roughly 1 month after building my Alder Lake PC, I am impressed with what I am seeing from Intel. In this video, I tackled overclocking the CPU and DRAM. Overclocking the CPU isn't as straightforward as cranking up voltages and hoping for the best. Those days are over. While I do plan on pushing Alder Lake further with overclocks, I am taking my time since I do not want to overvote and possibly degrade the CPU or damage the DRAM. My goal is to optimize performance, but simply relying on the highest core frequencies doesn't always mean you will get the best performance due to thermal throttling. As I continue to overclock with high frequencies, I plan to hopefully use the lowest voltages possible. My limit right now is the heat output and throttling. It makes no sense for me to keep pushing voltages if the CPU will simply throttle and lower the clock frequencies due to heat. This gives me opportunities to find other areas to increase performance that can lead to noticeable benchmark increases and typical workload performance increases. I will continue to publish my benchmarking tests as I complete them, so be sure to check back in the future. I decided to stay below the 100 Celsius limit at the moment since the CPU is already powerful and can be very efficient. However, in future videos, I plan to take deep dives into the wattage and VRM performance on the motherboard. I would like to have a closer look at what's going on and possibly find ways to keep the temperature and wattage lower at high frequencies. This type of deep dive would help me understand the UEFI or the BIOS settings better by actually seeing what is happening in real time with the voltages and the VRM performance. Stay tuned, guys. I still have plenty of more content to bring. Once again, I would like to say thanks to those who watch my videos and read my articles. Since I have started making YouTube videos along with my articles, a lot more goes on behind the scenes to bring additional content. Don't forget to join the Discord server in the link below, and don't forget to check out the articles on overclockthinGame.com. If you enjoy the content, please consider donating to my Patreon or PayPal in the links below. Thank you.